Today we're going to take a question from a viewer and talk about it. Today's my day off, but I am going to talk about this subject today. I'm not doing normal business activities. So the question that came in was, do you recommend someone to focus on general merchandise or to develop a niche? We're going to talk about that today on
The Crazy Picker Life with Wheeler, Dealer, and Banana Peeler.
Welcome, fellow pickers and would-be adventurers. Dealer here with the Crazy Picker Life Tuesday edition. Tuesday's a day off this week. I got to sleep in, I got to hang around with the kids, got some food shopping done, did some homeschooling with the kids. It's nice to have a catch-up day. When I take Sunday off, Sunday is family day. Sunday is not really a work day at all. My additional day off per week, I can actually get a few things done that are not work-related, but still work. So I'm always tackling a few projects. It's nice to do. So we had a question come in the last week, and I'm finding that the questions and the comments that come in are really good. And I'm going to start including some of those on my vlog days when I'm not necessarily doing Crazy Picker Life regular stuff. So again, this question was, do you recommend someone to focus on general merchandise or to develop a niche? Now, there's a lot of different ways to buy and sell. There's a lot of different ways to pick. And so general merchandise can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It would depend on where you are picking. Some people pick in person. Some people buy stuff online. Some people buy pallets of stuff. Some people are after all kinds of different merchandise. Niches can also be fairly wide niches, like almost categories. Some people would say clothing is a niche. Some people would say cameras are a niche. Some people would say sports memorabilia is a niche. I like to call that more of a category. So for a niche for me would be, I don't know, you still could be wide or narrow. Let's say if cameras are a category, which camera gear can encompass all kinds of different things. I mean, camera gear can be film cameras, it can be newer digital cameras, it can be video cameras, it can be old film movie cameras, it can be lenses, it can be accessories, it can be the bags and all the things that are used to haul camera gear. I mean, there's a lot. It can be, security cameras. It can be cameras for cars. We're starting to get backup cameras. It can be things like GoPros and YouTube type cameras. The whole camera gear category really is a large one. A niche within cameras might be like, old vintage camera lenses. And for example, if you are real savvy in old vintage camera lenses and can tell the difference between a cheap, worthless, doorstop version of a zoom lens and a Darlot brass France-made old projector lens, old magic lantern lens, then you can make some pretty good money. For example, we can pick up zoom lenses. Not all old zoom lenses are bad, but we can pick up zoom lenses and we can resell those for $5 plus shipping for not the worst ones, but certainly not the best ones. There's not much money you can make on a $5 lens, especially since they're heavy. You can also pick up a good magic lantern lens, a high quality one that can be reused in today's photography. We've picked one of those up for $25 and sold it for over $1,200. So there's, in the niche of camera lenses, there's a big wide range. Now there's camera lenses that go for $10,000, $20,000, even $100,000. We don't run into many of those. We know about them. We just don't find them. So back to the question. If you are a part-time newer, a part-time picker, a full-time picker wanting to expand, a full-time newer picker, if you're just on the newer side of picking and haven't settled into certain categories that you like to be in, or certain niches, that would be different than if you are a seasoned professional. Seasoned professionals can change categories, they can add categories, they can add niches, they can buy general merchandise, they can buy in their own categories and niches easier. The transition is easier. They've been through the process of learning before. Give you an example. It'll be interesting to see how Pete over there at Craigslist Hunter, how he transfers some of his buying and selling knowledge over into the clothing field. I have to give him some credit. I would not want to go into the clothing field. I know there are a lot of people out there that make good money in the clothing field, both part-time and full-time. I'm not that interested. I'm not that comfortable. I've asked my wife Lon if she wanted to venture into that, or my daughter Kate, or Banana Peeler. And although we do buy hats and belt buckles and some accessories, some shoes, some things like that, we're not full-blown into it. So it'll be interesting to watch Pete, who is a very successful seller of things more like I buy and sell, as well as some others, transfer into the clothing area. He's trying to expand his business. I know how he feels because he sees good stuff all the time, and I also know he hangs around with some other professional sellers that do buy and sell clothing. So let's talk category. Category is more like camera gear. It's a big category. Category is more like clothing. Category is more like auto parts. Or a category is more like tools. When you get down to a niche, it can be a lot tighter than that, okay? If you were in the auto category, a good niche for you might be vintage hubcaps, let's say. And so if you were on the outlook and even, going out of your way to search up and find vintage hubcaps, that would be a niche. Even though you might be only focusing on the auto category, you may have other niches as well. So you might also be looking for badges and emblems and hood ornaments. That might be another niche that's good for you. I don't know. I do buy and sell things in the automotive category from time to time. However, that's not a category I know an awful lot about. I can recognize value. I actually prefer to buy signs and things like that that are tailored towards the automotive side of things. So that would be another niche in the automotive market, would be like signs from dealerships, parts department signs, things like that. So if you are getting started, or if you want to expand your business, or if you feel like you're spinning your wheels, it is important as a new buyer and seller to look around. What is available in your area? What venues do you have in your area where you can go picking? What type of merchandise is available? that would be one thing where I would take that all in and come up with a category or two, a general category or two that you're interested in. There are hundreds of categories. Some are smaller, some are larger. Your local area, or if you buy online, your places that you like to shop online may have different categories that interest you. So I would select some categories. I would start to become familiar with those categories. And as you become familiar with those larger categories, you're going to recognize some niches. One of my categories that I like to buy and sell in is vintage electronics. I don't think I'm an expert in vintage electronics, but it's a category I'm interested in. I'm not an expert. However, I've been buying and selling out of that category of electronics for quite a while. Now, some of the things that I look for, some of the niches that I look for in the category of vintage electronics are things like vintage video games and cartridges. A lot of times the cartridges or the games are worth more than the systems. I look for vintage computers like Commodore 64 and VIC-20 and old Atari computers, old Apple computers, things like that. And the software. New old stock is excellent in some of those categories. I look for things like, I just picked up a Galaxy CB unit. And Galaxy, I believe, is a very hot commodity. There's people that will take those and use them, and there's people that will take those and modify them, and there's people that will take those and refurbish and update those. There's a good market for those. So within vintage electronics, there are all kinds of niches that you will learn about if you make vintage electronics something that you start picking up, start taking pictures of, model numbers and such, when you're out and about picking, start researching, start learning about when you're out there. So if you pick electronics and you start to see CBs out there, well, there's a dozen brands that I always run into, and it turns out for the most part, most of them aren't worth a lot as far as resale. So what you do, if you like vintage CBs or CBs in general, start taking pictures of them with your phone when you're out looking at them. This would be a niche. Model numbers, names, makers, options. You know, you can get into things like base stations, which is the, in farming, a lot of times they'll have somebody at the home base that calls out to all the tractors. And the tractors all have CBs in them. Same with trucking. Same with other route type systems. Same with hunters and hunting. There's a number of things that, you know, CBs are used for. When you get these pictures and these models and these makers of the CBs, you can go back to eBay, you can put those in the search bar, it will list out how many are listed. You can hit a button and you can go high to low. I like to see what's listed high to low. When I'm learning a category, I do a lot of this. When I'm learning a niche, I really zoom in and learn it. Especially if I start to find more of these items and I start to find you know, what this niche is and that it's a valuable niche. The next thing I do though, I don't only want to know what's listed, and if there's 500 items listed, I make a mental note of that. I try to make sure that my search words have pulled up a good representation of what that niche is though. You don't want to put, you know, vintage, CB, radio, Midland, XL534 and put that in and get 3 results and say, oh, that's, you know, the whole representative of vintage CBs. No, you probably need to back it out and look at Midland CBs or vintage CBs. Sometimes eBay will put little helper categories on there and you can research those. You want to get a good representation. Then you hit the button on the sidebar that says sold. Now, if there were 500 listed and there were less than 500 sold, that's an indicator that it's slower moving than if you hit sold and it was 500 listed and under sold in the last 30 or 60 days, it's 1,500. So if you pull up like Galaxy CB and put that in there, there'll be a bunch listed from high to low. There's good ones. You know, they start at, I don't know, $500 probably, maybe more. And the bottom of the barrel ones typically are still around $100. If you go in and look under sold, there's a good market for those. And I believe it's Galaxy. My mind says Galaxy. I hope I'm right on that. I have one back there I didn't list. I'll be listing that on tomorrow's show, so I'll double check. Wheeler has a brain that remembers all these brands and stuff. I'm more visual. I look at something, I'm like, that's money. And it doesn't, you know, it's kind of weird how how that all works. But Wheeler, on the other hand, you know, can't remember what happened 2 days ago. So he has a different kind of short-term, long-term memory than I do. We tend to complement each other, so that's good. It's almost like the three-legged race. You know, we're tied together at the middle leg, and we can actually do better tied together than if we're running separately sometimes. Okay. So the quickest answer I can give you to the whole, should I buy general merchandise and or focus on niches, is yes, both. Now there are all kinds of different strategies for buying and selling. In general, if I was to start again in the going out and buying and selling, I would pick a couple categories, a couple of wide categories that I'm interested in. Beer memorabilia, let's say that's one category. Another category, vintage electronics. Another category, camera gear. I would have these categories picked out because I know I run into those things and I'm interested in them. I like looking them over. I like spending time with them. I'm not afraid to clean them up. I know how to test them a little bit. I know I can get good prices on them out there. I know there's some good resale within those categories. Then what I do is I start either picking stuff up in those categories, testing the market. I start looking things up. I start taking pictures with my phone, going back to my office later and looking up high to low. I start reverse engineering that category to find the good niches. Once you start to learn what is good in those categories, that becomes your knowledge base. The bigger the knowledge base, the more niches you know about, the more categories you're comfortable with, you can go out and buy something and make money today. I'll give you a quick update. We went to Denver for 5 days last week between Christmas and the end of the year, and we went to the flea market. Many of you have probably watched our flea market video 10 days ago, 9 days ago. We went to the flea market. We spent 3 hours there. The difference this time is when we went to the flea market, our mindset was we're going to try to buy like we're picking full-time on the road. And so we're going to try to get quicker flips. We're going to try to get things that fit size and weight into our space. And so we just went with that mindset, and we ended up buying like 3 mail tote size totes full of stuff, which is a lot less than usual. Now part of it is we went on a Friday and it wasn't packed there, and part of it is we just bought well. Well, I listed 9 items from those totes, mainly from those totes last night. Probably 6 of them were from those totes. And this morning, 2 of them already sold. You might remember the yellow pike? No. Fluke. It was a Fluke electric multimeter that we bought for $30. Well, that sold last night for $90 plus shipping. Bam. And I mentioned in the video that probably would sell pretty quick. So all said and done, that's a $40 profit, $45 profit. Another thing was an Olympus voice recorder. Is a digital voice recorder. And we bought that for $15. Bam, that sold on Amazon for $59 free shipping. And so again, that's probably about a $30 profit when it's all said and done. So that can, those are niches that we're in. Vintage electronics, well, we know multimeters, we know some of the brands of tools, the electronic tools that are good. So when we see them, we try our best to test them. We see if they're all scratched up. We look at the screen. We try to get our best deal and we go for it. Now, Wheeler actually did look that one up and had some insight on what that would go for. So we didn't want to pay $30 for it, but it turned out it was a really good one. The digital recorder, new in package, most likely, and just quick flip that on Amazon. Okay, so I hope that mostly answers the question. What niches should you pick? What categories should you pick? Where should you pick? I mean, these are things that I think you'll do best if you just get out there and trial and error it. You can do all this thinking and planning behind the scenes, but then the actual doing it is going to bring that to light, what you want to do more. You may like it, you may not like it. Now, if you're starting and you're thinking that, hey, I'm going to just jump right out there and make hundreds of dollars a day, hundreds of dollars a week, hundreds of dollars a month, it does take time. And I would encourage you, if you think you want to be a full-time picker, to continue your job until you can build up expertise and an inventory, then find a job maybe that's less stress, part-time, something where you can work and be out there looking for stuff. Or there are jobs where you sit there and watch something, like an overnight job, watching somebody's house that sleeps there, that needs medical care. I mean, there's all kinds of jobs that are like that where you can do some listing while you're getting paid or whatever. So, take the whole thing in steps if you feel like you want to keep pressing it. The people that jump into this cold turkey or are expecting, since they don't have work or something like that, they've got maybe a couple $100 to spend on inventory. If you expect that to feed you, that's not going to happen. You're going to need to have a better plan. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some energy. It's going to take some focused learning. It's going to take some capital to put into your inventory, to grow your inventory. Now, again, there are different niches. There are different situations. There is many buying and selling scenarios as there are days in a year. There are a lot of different possibilities. Just in my buying and selling experience on a big scale, I've bought and sold DVDs, and this was in the 2002, 2003, 2004. This was earlier in the century. I've bought and sold 3 or 4 brands of high-end air purifiers, heavy volume, including Sharper Image. I got my start selling Sharper Image air purifiers back in the late 90s. I was selling Sharper Image air purifiers, private label almost, and that's another story, through eBay. diabetic test strips, camera gear, general merchandise, you know. So you also can't close yourself in a niche. You also can't close yourself in one category. I think what I've learned, one of the things I've learned in the last 10, 15 years of buying and selling online is even if you have a niche that is hot, some of your attention needs to be looking for the next one. So run with the winners, run with the winner niches, but don't put all of your attention there. Don't put all of it unless you have an escape plan. I had 2 or 3 niches that have went sour, and I was fully invested in all of those. And at the end of it, it felt like the rug was pulled out, and I wasn't prepared. I thought, wow, this could last forever. And I got fooled, and I got in the whole grind of it. And I'm talking about selling hundreds, DVDs. I was selling 1,000 DVDs a month towards the end, and then bam, the market changed. Walmart started carrying DVDs, and they started charging unheard of $10 or less. That drove the online market. You couldn't overcome shipping. That was a shift. When I was buying and selling air purifiers, the company that I was buying and selling them, the manufacturer, did a 180 and did a Vero thing on the whole eBay, and you could not sell them for a period of time on eBay. My sales of $10, $15, $20, even $25,000 a month overnight went to like $2,000 a month. Bad news. Oh, what other niche? Well, the other niche that I was in was the test strips, and I was getting lots of test strips in, but the competition that got in on test strips pushed the pricing up, and it pushed it up fast enough at a certain point where I was priced out of the market for the most part. If I was going to continue spending $10,000 a month on advertising, I was not going to get the return on new customers that I needed. And so what I did is I just kept servicing my old customers that kept coming to me. So categories, general merchandise, niches, it's an ongoing process. Now, because I was in DVDs, this is my last point, because I was in DVDs and exposed to that whole thing, because I was in the air purifier market, the high-end air purifier market, because I was in test strips, I still can buy and sell in all those niches. It's just not a gangbusters, go down the road, make a load of money anymore for me. It's a secondary thing. Now we're gangbusters in cameras. Cameras is a wide category, and we keep finding and losing and finding and losing different niches within the camera market. It's a wide category. There's a lot of niches. They change rapidly. We're trying to keep up on that. We're also into watches, and watches, we're still working on that. That's a persnickety little market of its own. I'm not convinced that's going to be a big one for us. I am convinced that there's money to be made. I hope that helped. I hope that answered your question. I do appreciate your questions and comments. I appreciate the thumbs up. I read all the questions and comments, and I'm trying to get back to those as often and as much as I can. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with a regular daily vlog. Pick well, list often, dealer out.
Hey, Wheeler.
Dealer Production.